Hi, I'm Mario Anderson. Welcome to In Focus Kentucky, the show where we take a look at issues that matter to you. Each week we talk directly to the lawmakers and community leaders who help shape policy and law that affects you. The month of March is National Women's Month, and in 1987, the United States Congress designated the month to honor women's contributions in American history. On today's episode, we are kicking off our Women's History Month series, highlighting various elected and non-elected leaders who are making contributions in the Bluegrass State. Allison Ball was elected in 2015 as Kentucky's 38th state treasurer and the nation's youngest female statewide elected official. And this past summer, Allison was the first constitutional officer in the Commonwealth to give birth while in office, an office that she is running a re-election campaign for as well this year. And Treasurer Ball, we appreciate you joining us here on In Focus Kentucky today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Happy to have you here. And let's first talk about your first term in office. You've had a busy several years. Has being the state treasurer been the role that everything you've imagined so far with this process going in to it as a new treasurer?
Oh, well, I've loved the job. It's been a great experience. It's been exactly what I hoped it would be. When I ran for office, I talked about wanting to be a watchdog for taxpayer dollars, and I feel like I've been able to do that the way I wanted to, and I want to continue doing it. It's just a privilege and an honor to serve Kentucky that way.
And people may not actually be aware at this point, since you've been fully ingrained as state treasurer, that previously you have had a law background and have served as assistant Floyd County attorney, and you did some prosecuting of child abuse and juvenile delinquency. So what made you want to switch things up and go from in the courtroom to becoming a state treasurer?
Well, that's a great question. So you're right, I was a prosecutor for about 4 years, and I think when you do that kind of work, you really start to see needs in a community. And I loved getting the opportunity to serve people that needed to be served, protect people, to look out for their interests. And I was doing it in my hometown, Eastern Kentucky. And out of that, I started a bankruptcy practice with a buddy of mine from law school. And again, that's an area where you're serving people's needs, you're helping people in your community, you're seeing how to make a difference. And I think once you start doing that, you start to think, well, what can I do that's more? And I've always had an interest in public policy, I have an interest in economics, and I've always thought, someday I want to run for office, someday I want to do that. And for me, that someday came pretty quick. I ran young, and I think I always try to encourage people, hey, if you've got a dream and you feel like you can make a difference in some way, take that opportunity when it comes, especially when you're young, because you've got nothing to lose when you're young. So I thought about the state treasurer's office. I felt like it had been underutilized for a long time, and it fit my skill set. Having come from a prosecutor's background, I knew how to fight for things, and having come from a bankruptcy attorney background, I knew how to fix financial problems and deal with numbers. So I ran for office, and I was kind of proud. I actually led the ticket. I got more votes than anybody else did that year, which was neat for me because it's the first time I'd ever run for anything.
Right.
So it was a great experience, and like I said, it's just been such fun, such a privilege, such an honor. I love doing it.
And as we've discussed, that the month of March is Women's History Month. So
yes.
Talk about just being able to be that kind of inspiration to other women, females, but people who were interested in trying to get into politics at some point. You were leading that charge for the state of Kentucky. How has that process been of being able to be an advocate for people wanting to follow in your footsteps?
Thank you. What a great question. Well, I love that it's Women's History Month because I'm always trying to encourage women to have a bigger voice in the world that they're in. I'm always trying to encourage women to run for office, to be on boards, to start businesses, to be more involved in the young people's lives that they're around, because I think women have just a great perspective that isn't always heard. So I'm always trying to encourage them, we need your voice at the table everywhere. And then of course women are such great people of influence. And so I love that this is a time where we really get to focus on the impact that women have and just encouraging women to do more. One thing I've read a lot, and I actually have studied a lot about women in politics, women in leadership, something I think about all the time, is that women often don't do something unless they're asked to do it. So when I get a chance to speak to young women in high schools or colleges or even like elementary school kids, I'll tell the women, the young women I'm around, I'm asking you to rise to a greater level of leadership. So for the women that are listening right now, I want to take this as a time just to ask these women that we need their voice, we need their input, because we need that perspective.
And a big staple of your first term in office has been discussing across the state about the importance of financial literacy, and on all levels, from young kids who are in school, but all the way to senior citizens, adults. Talk about this important issue for you and why it's something that you want to be a champion of.
A huge issue for me. So like I mentioned, I practiced bankruptcy law before I became state treasurer. And if you really want to know how people are living in Kentucky, you do that kind of work, because you start to see these are pitfalls that people have. There's a lot of great people who have had good jobs, who have had good education, or just a variety of experiences that just have not been trained on financial literacy. And there's always an organization that ranks states on how they're doing on different areas, and there's one that ranks states on financial literacy. And last year we were ranked 44th on financial literacy. It's not a place that you want to be. We were ranked 8th on personal bankruptcies, which is also a place that you don't want to be. And that just reinforced what I've seen, is that we have a gap on financial literacy. It's just an area where we've not been mindful of. We've not really paid attention to how people need training on this. So last year I was a champion for a bill that got passed to require a program or a course for kids to go through before they graduate from high school. So they've got to have some kind of financial literacy training before they graduate from high school.
Well, Treasurer Ball, we appreciate you joining us, and we're just getting started with you and our conversation here on In Focus Kentucky. Be sure to stay with us as we continue our conversation with Kentucky State Treasurer Allison Ball.
Well, when I first got sworn in, we were ranked 24th on transparency, and we're now in the top 10. And the only change has been the transparency website. So I tell people, you can Google your government. You need to be able to Google your government.
Much more of that coming up after a check of your Weather on the Ones forecast. We'll be right back.